How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right, guys, I want to give you guys a very, very powerful lesson. I hope you guys have your notebooks with you today, because today I'm going to get into some deep work stuff. I'm going to get into something that's in, I think, section 13 or 14. Even, I think it's maybe later. It's in the last section. This is going to be one of the later weapons that we train in the Spartan training. But today I want to talk about the accountability challenge. This is the way we do introspection in a way that most of the world will never, ever, ever do. So the accountability challenge is the way we look back at our past. And this is one way to make it so if you can use this one tool, the belief system of life is happening to me is impossible. The belief system that perpetuates my past is working against me. The victimhood mentality. It is impossible for this to sustain. So I want you guys to understand what it is, and then we challenge it together, and I show you how it works. The very base level of the accountability challenge is to tell the story with as much fault upon ourselves as I can possibly stretch it to be. Like, this may sound a little crazy at first. So, like, if I said, like, oh, well, my wife did this, or my, friend betrayed me on this, or this thing happened, and to tell the story with, I chose to be there, I chose to start the fight, I did pick this thing to say, I did say that, I went this far, I could have left, I decided to. If you put as much upon me as possible, all of a sudden it's very difficult to create the tragedy story when it seems a lot more like it's on me. This is one thing I want you guys to pay attention to with the propaganda of people's tragedies. If anybody here doesn't know the difference between a tragedy and justice, when you're watching any type of story, if you were to say, let's say a innocent small girl, a little child, falls off of a building and dies. Well, if something like that happens, that's a tragedy. That's a very sad thing to happen. That's sad. It's because it's an innocent child and something has happened to this poor little child. That's very sad, right? But at the end of Die Hard, when you throw the terrorist off the building, it's yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, because that's justice. The bad guy is thrown off the building. The bad guy, he died. And if the bad guy dies, that's justice. And so if you're looking at the story, if bad things happen to good people, that's a tragedy. That's a sad story. But if bad things happen to bad people, well, that's just karma. That's just justice, man. Like, I don't feel bad if the bad guy got punched in the face. But if the good guy gets killed, you're like, oh no, that was a good guy. That's why the death of Jesus is a tragedy. That was a truly good guy who was brutally tortured and murdered. That was a good guy. He was a good dude. And they let Barabbas go. They let the bad guy go. He can just go free. This is the definition of a tragedy. But if you see a pedophile or a rapist get killed or beat up, you're like, yeah, fuck that dude. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, let's take the same logic, the same concept. If you raise the accountability of yourself for all your scenarios, she was mean to me, or that guy was a dickhead, or I got taken advantage of. You're like, what were you doing there? You're like, no, don't worry about what I was doing. Take all of my stuff out of it and just look at what they did. No. Add all of my shit. You guys are going to say, why is she leaving me? I don't like being broken up with, my relationship. And we go back and like, why don't we call your relationship what it really was? You may have been absent-minded. You may have been negligent. You may have been mean. You may have been ice cold, or you may have been kneeling when you should have been standing. Tell the fucking story right, and all of a sudden your tragedy turns into an inevitability. You're like, well, of course it went that way. You did that thing. Well, I called her a fucking bitch. I'm like, oh, did we leave that out of the story? Did we leave that part out? You guys ever notice when your ladies tell the story, they seem to have goldfish memory on their part? You guys ever notice that? It's because they're writing a tragedy. If they tell the truth, it's no longer a tragedy. If a woman, like, I'll give you an example. I knew a woman who literally was like, I was in an abusive relationship. And I was like, how long were you with that guy? She was like, I was with him for 10 years. And I'm like, I know you. You are not the welcome home, dear. Want to massage your shoulders? How was your day at work today? Oh, a tough day. Allow me to make you some dinner. Can I rub your feet? That's not you. You're the fuck you, bitch. What the fuck are you gonna fucking do? I'll fucking kick your fucking ass. No, you can't leave, bitch, you fucking pussy. That's you. That's who you are. I know that when you tell this story, it wasn't about you picking the fight. It was only the recorder only got turned on after they had enough. Am I speaking to the choir here, guys? Where if you ask her what the fuck happened, did she completely forget the whole part where she was talking shit for 2 hours before you fucking snapped? Well, I don't want to talk about that part. What did you do? I called him a fucking useless pussy who doesn't do a fucking thing. I got in his face, I spit in his face and said, fuck you, you little bitch. And I'm like, did we leave that part out of the story? When we remove the tragedy from our story and we have radical accountability to, well, I wasn't there, or I chose to get drunk, or I chose to do drugs, or I chose to leave, or I chose to like just leave everything on her table and fucking ran away, or I said this shitty thing, or I didn't speak up when I was supposed to, or I didn't do this, or I did that, or I did this thing, or I wasn't there. Like, if you tell the truth of your story, you're no longer a victim. Now it's like, well, damn. There's a lot of shit that I really did. This is useful because you no longer have to perpetuate a lie. You no longer have to have an identity around a deceit. If you're living in a world of deceit, it's going to be very difficult for you to seek authenticity or growth because now you have to perpetuate lying in order to be your identity. Well, fellas, the reason this doesn't work for us is because how many of you guys can have gone out into the world looking for sympathy and empathy for your tragedies and actually fucking got it? Yeah, as guys, it's very rare that people go like, oh, that poor damsel. Our ladies can play this card, but the guys, it seems like, well, she was mean to me. You're like, why didn't you fucking leave then, dude? No, she hit me. Like, are you okay? She's like 5'1", dude. You're like, yeah, but you're not supposed to hit people. Like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, it seems like it's not a big deal when guys are abused, and so we can't play these cards. Fellas, the accountability challenge goes inward so hard to make it so life didn't happen to you. Now it's happening for you. Don't you see your opportunities? If I tell the story the way that it really happened with maximum accountability upon myself, whenever something is your fault, whenever it's your fault, didn't you notice how quickly you learn the lesson from it? How much do you guys want to bring up the past when it was your fuck up? Think about it. Like, well, I totally fucked that whole thing up. Who wants to talk about it? No, I don't. No, I don't want. I learned, dude. I don't want to do that again. Remember that one time that you totally fucked up? Like, yes, I do. That's why I don't do that anymore. I remember. You're like, let's talk about it again. I'm like, let's not talk about it again. I learned from that shit. You're like, no, let's bring it up. Let's not. Are you seeing how when the lesson was learned and I went accountability on me, I figured out what to do and what not to do. I'll never do that again. I grew from the ordeal. I don't need to keep bringing it up over and over again because my identity is not routed in the event. My identity is routed in the growth from the event, which means I don't need to bring up the past to tell you the stories of what happened to me. Look at the behaviors that I do now that I learned from that, and that's who I am. because how I am today is who I am, but I'm not defined by my past or my circumstances. I'm defined by the choices I make today that reveal me to myself. The accountability challenge pulls me out of that belief system of life happening to me. I'm learning from my mistakes. So the more you can add, this was my mistake, the more we can go into the guilt element of it. Remember, the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is feeling bad for something I did or did not do. Shame is feeling bad for who I am or what I am. Well, we don't need shame in this one. Guilt is useful. Well, shit, when I tell the story with the truth of all the things I fucked up, I learn very quickly all the things I'm not going to do again because I fucked that shit up. So I don't need to keep bringing up shit that I learned because that was the point of it, is to learn. Well, how many of you guys need punishment for learning a lesson? How many of you guys, if we were doing a math problem, I'm like, all right, what do you got? 2 plus 2. And you're like, I got 4. I'm like, that's correct. Smack you in your face. You're like, why did you hit him? I'm like, he got it right, but we had to make sure that he really learned it. So I punished him. We don't need punishment for learning. I don't need you to do some level of fucked up, like, fuck me, I'm a piece of shit. It's a waste of time. I don't need to do that. The point of going into the past and telling the story with radical truth is so I can have radical growth. And when you put full accountability on every single decision and even stretch some into your, like, that's maybe not fully me, but I'll take some of that too. It makes it so you learn and grow 10x. Anybody who does this tool becomes a fucking rocket ship on learning. Your humility goes through the roof. You start raising your awareness of understanding. You no longer tell everybody what is or how it should be. You start going, well, I fuck up so much. I'm very interested in hearing a better way. Don't you see? You start pulling yourself back from trying to control everything. And now you start realizing there's opportunity everywhere to be the best fucking guy you could possibly ever fucking be, because you're not trying to tell the world how it is, because I can look back at my own stories and see it's riddled with fuck ups. Well, those are lessons. Those aren't made to torture you. They're made to teach you. That's what the past is for. But if you're too busy trying to control the narrative to be a tragedy, you're missing your own evolution in living a fucking lie. You don't need to live a lie. It's unnecessary for growth. In fact, it's counterintuitive to create an enabling system where I don't tell the truth about my own choices, so other people will feel sorry for me as though I'm in a tragedy. You're not in a tragedy. You're not in a tragedy. You're learning from this. It's a fucking documentary. You're supposed to learn something from this. These things happened. These things happened. So these things happened, but they didn't happen to you. They happened for you. And that's the evolution of Spartan training, is to get you to see that the world isn't happening to you guys. Ever since you were 15 years old, you were making choices that make some sort of stacked outcome. Causality is in your effect now, because every decision that you make has led you to here. You guys look around you, everything you have, how your health is, how your finances are, how your relationship is, how your relationship with your children is. Everything every item you have in your fucking house, everything in your world right now is the perpetuation and outcome of every single decision that you've ever made. You're sitting right now in the culmination of all of your choices. Now, some things are very good. Some things like, fuck yeah, crushing it there. This is awesome. Or I love this. Or I'm proud of myself for that. Yes. And then some shit's like, this is not going well. That's not the way I would like it to be. Well, that's also a culmination of which choices. When we hold ourselves highly accountable to our own decisions, it starts making it so I can no longer lie to myself as to why I create excuses or justifications to continue. Now I can go, well, now I can learn from it because I can see what it is. You're like, man, I'm not in the shape that I want to be in. I'm like, didn't you just eat like an entire cake by yourself? Dude, it was a fucking bet, bro. You're like, yeah, no, we should probably not take those bets. Let's go ahead and pull back on the accountability of I didn't win that bet, I'm losing that bet. Like, no, I take better care of my body. I take better care of me. How's your relationship going? Are you doing emotional currency? I don't even know what the fuck that is. Well, no wonder intimacy is low. I can see you guys aren't actually doing any type of love stuff. That's tricky. I can see why you're struggling. It's got to be hard. Tell the story with the truth, and all of a sudden you start seeing opportunity. Tell the story with radical accountability, radical truth, and now you don't have to hide behind story anymore because now you just see opportunity. This is one of the most powerful fucking weapons that you could have for growth. Because you're no longer ruled by narrative. Now you can see like, hey, this is how I can grow. This is how I get better. That's where I can learn from this. And the past now becomes lessons. That's all it was ever meant to be. But if you keep trying to alleviate the responsibility to the lesson, well, then you're going to stay stuck in your victimhood forever. You're not learning from it, but that's what it is for. This is the accountability challenge. The reason you are where you are is because you made a lot of choices to get here. It didn't happen to you. There's a lot of things you decided to do to make it so you are where you are right now. This is happening for you to go look at your decisions and let's learn from them to make different decisions. That's it. No shame, no judgment, no ridicule, no who you're bad or any of that shit. It's irrelevant. It already happened. But did you learn from it? That's what it's for. The whole purpose of it is, did you learn from it? So when you're going in, you're telling your story. Can you tell the story with as much accountability and fault as you possibly can place upon yourself? Well, I did say that, and then I did this, and I called her a fucking bitch, and then I told her if she fucking ever says it again, I'm gonna fucking leave her because I'm the safety security in the house. You're like, wow, Captain Safety Security, you told her you're gonna fucking leave her and she's a fucking bitch and you're the safety security, huh? How you doing on your job? You're like, I would probably fire me, is what that looks like. Like, maybe she's not doing it to you. Maybe you're not doing a great job on your end. This isn't a tragedy. It sounds like a justice story. Sounds like karma, bro. Yeah, she didn't want to fuck me after I called her a fucking cunt and told her I'll never help her again. That's weird. Why isn't she giving me my sex? Well, that is weird. Why don't you tell the story accurately, and you're going to start pretty much figuring your fucking answer out really quickly. Tell the story with honesty and truth and integrity and accountability, and all of a sudden, every day turns into a lesson. Everything that ever happened turns into opportunity to grow. And you guys become fucking weeds. You guys turn into bamboo coming out of the ground. You guys grow so fucking fast. People can't believe who you are because I'm not holding on to what was. I'm learning from what was. And how I am today is who I am. And how I was is no longer who I am. That's the accountability challenge. Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.